All right, now we're going to visit with Speaker of the House, David Osborne. Speaker Osborne, welcome to the show. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Larry. Always a pleasure to be with you.
A lot of headlines last week about the surplus that Kentucky has, and I know that the legislature's touted their legislative maneuvers and leading to this surplus, but yet the governor also is claiming some credit. He says there's enough credit going around for everybody. We had Senator Damon Thayer on Friday. He thought that was disingenuous, that the governor was riding the coattails of the legislature. So tell me about the surplus. Who's responsible and what happens to the surplus?
Well, Larry, I will agree with the governor on one point. There's always plenty of people that line up to take credit for good news, and a scarcity of those lining up to take responsibility for the bad news. And certainly there's always plenty of credit to go around, but in acknowledgement of that, you have to be willing to be part of the creation of policy, to be part of the celebration of the results of that policy. And the fact of the matter is, we've spent roughly 6 years being criticized and fought tooth and nail on every major economic policy initiative that we've embarked on. And I think whether it be right to work policy or whether it be tax policy this year, we've met opposition on those things. I think when there are opportunities for us to dole out plentiful credit, I think you see us do that. You saw us do that with the appropriation of all the ARPA dollars, where the administration was incredibly helpful on the administration and the appropriation of the initial round of ARPA dollars, and that was because we worked together on those things. So I think that when there's opportunities, you will see us be more than willing to meet that credit out. But the fact of the matter is, this isn't a huge surprise. If you go back to March of 2020, before COVID hit, or as COVID hit, we were on course to break all kinds of records then, with an economy that was that had record job creation, record investment in Kentucky businesses, record low unemployment, and again, record revenues coming into the general fund. You combine the economic policies that generated that with the incredible influx of federal dollars, and it was relatively easy to project that our revenues were going to increase. Certainly, everybody's gratified to see that they have continued to increase, but we will continue to proceed with caution, as we have cautioned everybody the last 3 budgets that we have passed. This economy is far from stable. When you look at the workforce issues, the supply chain issues, the incredible increasing costs of construction and labor and everything else that we're dealing with, I think it's a little premature to be celebratory about being flush with cash. So I think as far as what happens with that money, I think you're going to continue to see us be very fiscally conservative with it. And I, as of right now, that money will go into the Budget Reserve Trust Fund until we get back to appropriate it. I think that you will see us likely continue to build those reserves, to pay down debt, to continue to try to tackle our incredible pension liabilities, as we have done for the last 6 years since we've been in the majority. There are some estimates that show that we have up to a $30 billion pension liability. That is a lot less than it was a few years ago because of the amount of money that we have continued to contribute to it. But I think that it's even been suggested maybe that we go in early and prepay some of our pension liabilities while markets are kind of in the tank right now, and allow the pension systems to take investment or take advantage of the investment opportunities that we have. So we're going to continue to have those conversations, but we're going to be very, very diligent and very deliberate about it.
We're talking with Speaker David Osborne. He represents the 59th District here in Kentucky. How much of the surplus, though, is an infusion of one-time federal dollars because of COVID? I mean, does that play any role in the surplus at all?
It certainly does, Larry, and that's one of the things that makes this so difficult to completely wrap your arms around. We have yet to really gauge the true impacts. There are some very smart economists that have opined on that issue as to whether or not or what degree of our revenue increase is attributable to one-time infusion of dollars. But even those economists, the consensus forecasting group, which is a very, very talented group of scientists, have admitted that it's at best throwing darts at a dartboard.
Isn't though that makes it difficult though to take that money and earmark it towards annual expenses, knowing that it's a one-time deal, at least as it pertains to the federal dollars from COVID, because it's not going to be a consistent revenue stream, so it's hard to use it for some new expenditure that will be an annual expense.
That's exactly right. And we've tried to be very cautious about using one-time dollars for recurring expenses, and even more so, one-time expenditures that may result in annual maintenance costs down the road. So, and again, I think that to try to fully wrap our arms around the increase in expenses that we're seeing, the inflationary pressures that we're seeing, the cost of everything is going up. The cost of labor is going up. The cost of materials is going up. We see that our road fund came in a little bit under projections, under budget this year, not appreciably, but at the same time, when we made that budget, that road plan was probably 98% programmed, meaning we spent just a little bit less than we had. But now we may come back with a road fund that is 125 to 130% over programmed simply because of the increase in cost. And clearly that money's got to be made up somewhere, and likely that is going to be made up by eliminating some projects.
We're talking with Speaker David Osborne. Let's talk a little bit about economic development and raising revenue. Does Kentucky have a revenue problem? I know people have talked about other possibilities, a way of generating more revenue, among them sports gaming. Does Kentucky need to come up with some new revenue streams to meet their demands and the needs going forward?
Yeah, I think we always need to be receptive to ideas of creating new revenue, Larry. But at the same time, I think the long-term policy commitments that we have made have been to grow our revenues through growing our economy, and we've looked at principally at tax policy in the last year to do that. For anybody that doesn't believe that tax policy drives growth in both revenue and population, you don't even have to take a trip to Tennessee. Pull up satellite imagery of the Kentucky-Tennessee border and look at the areas immediately south of the Campbell, Fort Campbell areas or the Bowling Green areas, and see the dramatic line that is drawn, which is our state border. It is as if there is a brick wall that prohibits people from building houses in Kentucky. It is amazing as you see road after road after road and subdivisions that are stubbed into the Kentucky line with no houses being built on our side of the border. And
so what's the reason for that, though? What's the reason? Speaker, what's the reason for that, though? I mean, what can be done about that?
But it can. The only reasonable assumption that you can draw or conclusion that you can draw is that it's tax policy. Tennessee has 0% income tax, and Kentucky has, as of right this second, 5% income tax. It's going to 4.5. Our first trigger will kick in January of 2023, and we will systematically, based on a formula of revenues and appropriations, will systematically eliminate our income tax to make us more competitive with those areas.
So do you see that happening in the near future? Will we get away from sales tax get away from income tax altogether and go to a sales tax based system of generating revenue? And secondly, do we have the kind of tourism that allows for us to go into that kind of direction?
I think we do. I don't know that we will ever get to zero on the corporate side of income tax, but I do think that we can get to zero in a relatively expedient fashion with the policy that we put in place this past year with our tax modernization bill that we passed. We have built-in revenue triggers that also require physically responsible budgeting. And those will, as I said, the first trigger has already been hit. I expect that we will hit especially with the continued revenue numbers. I expect that we will rapidly hit the second trigger and lower it another half point and get us down to 4 within a year.
Speaker, by the way, we're talking with Speaker David Osborne. We're starting to run a little short on time. I got a couple of topics to get in here. I would say that on our show and from our listeners who call and also text, that when we start talking about legislative initiatives, sports betting gets the most attention. Do you see that taking place and getting passed and becoming law anytime in the near future as a form of revenue stream that Kentucky could benefit from? And you know, I know some people have made projections of $27 million of revenue. That doesn't seem like a lot, really. So I mean, what are the potential revenue stream of Kentucky from sports gaming? And do you think that that'll happen anytime soon?
We passed sports betting out of the House this past session with a pretty substantial margin. Certainly remains a very controversial issue within the legislature and to some degree even within the public. But we passed it out with a strong vote in the House. And yes, it will create revenue. But while I support expanded gambling, I have my entire tenure in the legislature. I supported the sports betting bill. I've always said that the worst reason in the world to pass gambling is to increase revenues for government. I don't believe that is the reasonable approach to an expanded gambling issue. But we now have every surrounding state in Kentucky that has sports wagering, and I think it's reasonable to expect that pressure is going to continue to mount here in Kentucky and eventually pass.
We're talking with Speaker David Osborne. Last topic. Roe v. Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court last month. Kentucky's trigger law goes into effect where it prohibits essentially abortion in every instance with the exception of the mother's life being in danger. A lot of people have asked a question about exceptions for rape and incest. Kentucky's laws does not allow for that. Do you anticipate revisiting that law? I mean, I think that it'll probably withstand legal challenges based on what the Supreme Court ruled. And if it does, and the trigger law goes into effect as it is, do you anticipate maybe readdressing carve-outs for rape and incest?
I think that there will continue to be conversation about it, Larry. That was discussed in depth when the trigger law was passed in 2019. The vast majority of the sentiment at that point in time in the legislature, bipartisan legislative vote, it was that there would not be any exceptions other than life of the mother. But I do believe that now that reality is upon us, I think that will certainly be a conversation that's had. I'm not real sure where that will ultimately fall out, but I think that more importantly around that, we've got to redouble our focus on the wraparound services to make sure that we provide needed services for adoption, for foster care, and other needs of the population of Kentucky.
Speaker, we're out of time as always. Appreciate it. Hope to have you back soon.
Always a pleasure, Larry. Thank you.